live?
Are we live?
Now we are.
He says we're not live yet. Now we're live.
When the sound guy says
Yeah.
not live,
Yeah.
but then we're live now.
But now we're live?
We're live,
Okay.
yes.
Where are we live from?
We are here from the Unleash Your Life Studios, home of Reverend Dr. Michelle Whittington, who so graciously shares her space with us on Sundays. And we really are grateful for having her ministry here and her support of our ministry. So that's where we are. And you still have time to get here because we'll babble for a couple minutes. But you don't want to miss this. We have a special guest. And I don't know if you've noticed that there's somebody else on the sofa with us.
Right? Yes.
But,
and, for those of you who watch us, you know that generally that means one of us is missing.
it does happen.
Right.
That's
So,
what
but this is an amazing time period where we have a guest and we're both here.
No, neither one of us
Oh.
wanted to miss this time with Reverend
Exactly.
Mitch, yeah.
Right. Reverend Mitch. Welcome, Reverend Mitch.
Great to be on the sofa.
You can look him up online. So what's your handle online?
SpeakTeachInspire.com is my website. You can also find me at Mitch Austin on Facebook.
Okay, and then also on Instagram.
Yes, Mitch Austin it is. Mitch Austin on Instagram.
Okay, so check that out because last night he did an amazing workshop night, which,
yeah,
if he's giving that
Absolutely.
again, you should check it out. What was that called again?
Taming Your Inner Critic.
Right.
And if you want to know your top inner critic types, go to my website. There's a little quiz you can take. And at the end, your top 3 scores are your top 3 inner critics, and it tells you what they're like. So.
Right.
Or sit next to Mitch at dinner tonight. I mean, at lunch.
At lunch today. You get here, you can go to lunch with us because we're going to lunch right after this. It's our first official lunch because they go to lunch without me a lot. And I said-
One time.
And I
One
said, wait
time.
a minute, I'm going to set a date so we can all go to lunch together. And then Mitch said, well, then I'm coming down and I'm going to be on the sofa.
Right? I mean,
I'm
how
doing
cool
a
is
thought.
that?
That's awesome.
Exactly.
Right.
Are you ready?
So is that everything? We got
Is that, I think we
I
covered
think so.
everything.
Let's do it.
All
Let's do
right.
it. Let's pray in, you guys. Let's begin within. Yeah, let's get some deep breaths going. Let's come into this moment together. Let's release everything. Everything on our mind, everything that came before. Let's just release that in the next breath. Let's let it go. Let's release anything coming after this. Anything we know that we've got to do, that to-do list, anything that might be worrying us, we're just going to set it to the side right now. We'll get to it later, but right now we're going to be in this present moment together. And as we are here, we recognize there is one power, one presence, one life. There's only one energy, and that is God. God is love. God is peace. God is joy, laughter, beauty, oneness, that connection we feel between each other. And each one of us are the perfect manifestation of the one. We're each unique, but we are each made of that, like Reverend Jeannie likes to say, that sparkly God stuff, glowing and sharing our light in our own way. So we are each that love, that joy, that peace, that connectedness. We are each that oneness. And I know that from that place, when I speak my word into the law, I know that the law of God only says yes to what I've spoken. And so I speak my word for today's time together, for myself, for Reverend Jeannie, for Reverend Mitch, for everyone in this room and everyone that will be hearing it broadcast live or later on. I speak my word knowing that this time is divinely guided. The sharing, the ideas, the stories, the laughter, all of that is truly blessed. And each one of us, as we allow ourselves to stay present, as we allow ourselves to connect, I know that we take what is ours to receive. I know that we take that into our own lives, enrich our lives, continuing to create the life we love. And I'm so grateful to be a part of that. I am so grateful that our ministry is a part of that, and everyone in this room, everyone watching it, we are all a part of that for each other and for ourselves. And so I bless it and I let it go, and I know that it is already done in the mind of God, and it is perfect and it is good. And together we say, and so it is.
Yay! Thank you.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Start us off, sister.
I will. Guess what we got?
Yes.
We got a reading. So everybody should have their card with your topic for today. Our reading coming from the New Thoughts for today from affiliated New Thought Network. And we are on page 65 for those who have their books. What's there to forgive? Forgiveness is holiness. By forgiveness, the universe is held together. Paramahansa Yogananda. Humankind is made in the image and likeness of God. Our true nature is love. Our true nature is the infinite expansion of all that is whole and holy. There is only one life, the life of God, and it is everywhere present. We are all connected and part and of the one power and presence throughout eternity that loves us unconditionally. For there is no possible separation from this one. Only in our thoughts can we conceive and believe we are separate. Our purpose then is to live from wholeness that we are and to allow others to do the same. The master teacher Jesus instructed us, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Luke 6:31. Simply put, that means being kind. It doesn't mean I know what's best for you, but rather my nature is a forgiving one. We have been placed here forgiving of our talents so that they may be expanded for good unlimited. When we look for what's wrong with ourselves or others, it is time to bless the lesson and return once again to the giving of love. For this is how we can truly live our bliss and bring heaven to earth. I now choose to be kind and loving to myself and others. Thank you, Mother, Father, God, for being aware of the love that I am and joyously allowing it to flow unencumbered through me. Reverend Gabe Beauregard, Religious Science Minister, Alpine, California.
I love that.
I love that one.
For those of you
Absolutely.
just watching, so it's for giving, FOR-giving.
Yes.
It's a different, I said we're going to talk about forgiveness this month in every angle, every way to look at it, because it's a lot more than just the standard idea. But I, particularly in my heart, when we first read this, that just got me. It's forgiving. And I love that. That's what we are. We're forgiving.
Exactly. And forgiveness as a action, a verb, isn't about the person you're forgiving.
Amen.
It's about you. And that forgivingness is when I give in that way. I give myself a gift. I let myself off the hook. And we talked a little bit about that last night. Yeah.
Feel free to, you can always
Yeah,
steal
you
a
can
microphone.
you can
Whoever's
just
not
grab a
talking, just grab
microphone.
it.
Steal a microphone.
Yeah, steal a
I know
microphone
he's got
and
things to
talk.
say.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I love this subject of forgiving, and so often people think, well, if I forgive them, they're going to be let off the hook.
Mm.
They should pay for what they did. But I think so often, what I do is I try to remind myself that anyone who acts out of integrity typically isn't in balance or well within themselves, right?
Mm.
So hurt people. And that's its own kind of punishment in a way. And I know that there are times when I've acted out of less than graceful places, and I wasn't doing too good, and that's its own kind of self-contained judgment or karma. And I don't think we need to add to it
Right.
by withholding our love and our healing, because at the end of the day, there's only one of us. And we're all just reflections of different pieces of consciousness at different times. So sometimes, we're the saint, and sometimes we're the sinner. We get to be both. And if we can be light about that and give a little bit when it's needed, then we have a world that works for everybody.
I love that. I so agree. I mean, can you recall a time when you have not been forgiven by somebody? Can you recall how that felt when somebody was upset with you and you tried to apologize or you tried to make amends and they did not forgive you? How does that, can you feel that? How does that feel? That doesn't feel good. It's a horrible feeling because we then don't feel connected, right? And maybe we did something really bad. Maybe we did. I mean, we're not perfect in the human experience. We make mistakes in our human expressions, but that's also how we learn and grow and we get better and we move and fix things. It's part of our journey. But when somebody else doesn't allow that part, us to move through that, and it stops that love flow to them because of something that we've done, it's very painful. And then on the flip side, can you remember a time when you've done something wrong or done something bad towards somebody else and they forgave you?
Mm-hmm.
How did that feel? Especially if you felt like you didn't earn it or you don't deserve it or it was so bad you don't deserve it and they're still like, I'm good. I love you. I'm good. We're going to get through this. We're going to work through this. I trust you that you're not going to do this again, that you're going to fix this or whatever the situation was. It's a whole different feeling. Now I feel drawn. I feel connected. It's a whole different movement and I've been on both sides of that where I wasn't able to forgive and where I wasn't forgiven or vice versa, when I was able to forgive or when I was forgiven, and I can tangibly feel the difference, obviously, of what each one brought to my life. I'm not sure for the other person, but I know for me what those differences were.
And I love that you mentioned the connection piece, right? Because I think what's at the root of the pain of unforgiveness is we really want to be connected. And when we feel a sense of disconnect from a lack of trust or violation of boundaries, we feel the pain of disconnection. So we're trying to disconnect something that cannot be disconnected. I mean, imagine if your right hand judged your left hand as not worthy, you're lazy and tried to cut it off. That's painful. And that's the pain I think we feel when we're harboring unforgiveness. We're trying to divide what can't be divided.
Oh, I love that. And in speaking to that, where Reverend Gay talks about there's only one of us, right? We are one. So the separation is in our minds, not in the one reality, right? Mm-hmm. So with that, when you're talking about the right and the left hand, I'm telling you, my body parts get yelled at, right? Like I have that in my body sometimes, physically speaking, where it's not being very forgiving, in reference to that. So just having that experience physically in my body allows me to see what that would be like externally, with a friend, with a partner, with a child. It's like that disconnect that happens. And I loved the breakdown, and that's why we chose it, the forgiving. Yes. It seems like we're being so magnanimous when we forgive somebody. I am holy. You are forgiven. You can tell I grew up Catholic, right? Please do 10 Hail Marys and give to the poor box. So there's that, that act of contrition when it comes to forgiveness that comes up that says, I am really sorry that I hurt you, and here's how I'm going to beat myself up so you don't have to. Does anybody ever experience that? Like, I know I did wrong, so here's how I'm going to beat myself up so that you don't hold it against me anymore. I've been on both sides of that, and I think that you could never judge me or hurt me the way I do myself.
Oh.
Right? So that forgiveness or that forgivingness
to ourselves and others is so important. I have a reading.
Do it.
Another. I
You
know.
don't scare me. Do it.
Okay. This one comes from the Science of Mind textbook, and it's on page 561. And it is part of the meditations in the Science of Mind. And it's called, I Am Not Bound by Any Mistake. There is nothing we have done, said, or thought which rises up against us, which has power over us, or which limits us. There is no memory of fear, no condemnation for previous mistakes. With the desire to free ourselves from the further indulgence in the mistake, the effect of the previous mistake is wiped out, just as light dissipates the darkness. The universe holds nothing against us. It can hold nothing against us. This is important. Pay attention. It can hold nothing against us because it cannot know anything unlike itself. Therefore, it only knows us as perfection. There has never been an occurrence for which we have to suffer. Consequently, every apparent shortcoming, which could be traced to some mental or spiritual infringement of the law, is not only removed, but the effect is healed. Right? So if the universe gives me this, and gives you this, and gives you this, and gives all of you this, who am I to hold it against you? Who am I to hold it against me? I've always been so grateful for my time that I experience in the 12 steps, because that is one of the things, being willing to make amends for past mistakes and current mistakes. That part, I always felt stop the wheels of karma. It jumps in there and it says, thank you. Okay, right that wrong. And sometimes we can't. Sometimes we've done something horrendous, and we might not ever make it right for that person, and the best we can do is try.
It's for giving, right? So it's for giving love to ourselves, for giving peace to ourselves, for giving, I'm trying to say, it's looking, so when you've done something like that, I think we all have done at least one thing in our lives that we wish we could take back, right? And so sometimes it takes a long time for us to get to a place of forgiving, right? For giving love to ourselves, or for giving ourselves peace through that situation that happened. Sometimes it can be a process. We'll talk about that another week, how it's more of forgiveness is a process. It doesn't always happen overnight. It's not going to just flip a switch like this. It's a process that we need to run through. Oftentimes we have layers upon layers of emotions that are wrapped up around the situation or whatever that we need the process to work through to get to the result of, now I'm just giving myself love around it. Now I'm just giving myself peace around it. Or with other people, if it's not me, and something has happened outside of myself, it doesn't mean, what is that? I might forgive you, but I'm not going to forget. It doesn't mean like I forgive you, now you're free to run rampant and do whatever you want to do. I'm never saying that, but it's forgiving, releasing that, those feelings and allowing yourself just to give love to that person. But then I would say, like, I've had a situation before where somebody definitely stepped over a boundary, and it was like, I totally forgave them, but the relationship was no longer going to be the same. And it was, so I can love you and I can still care about you and I forgive you. And I was being really honest about that, but the relationship will no longer be in that lane. It's now going to be in this lane, because it's just different for me now. It's not that I don't forgive you or love you or care. It's just a different road that we're going to be on now. And that's okay too, but it's there's a whole process of finding where that is. So the two feelings, the feeling that feels yucky, in my mind, then you really you haven't forgiven, you haven't gone through the process, you're not there yet. And we talked about that last week, of if they can't run through your mind, unharmed, then you have work to do, because that's the forgiveness, the work is within you.
What? It's
I'm
begin within?
sorry. It's inside. Everything. Yeah, everything is inside. So that work is inside you. But if you get to a place where you can still, they walk through your mind, or you can still send love their way, you can pray for them. They come into the room and you're like excited, happy to see them. Maybe the relationship is the same, but now you have a different feeling. You're allowing that connection. You're allowing whatever the relationship is now to flow and be that way. And I think that's what we try to come to.
I love that. Just because you forgive doesn't mean you have to be a doormat.
Right.
And I think healthy boundaries. I saw a quote once that boundaries are the distance between you and I where I can love us both. And that seems to make a lot of sense because everybody is just where they are on their journey. And there are definitely previous versions of me that would not be on this couch and would not have been a reverend. So, to remember that, I think is really healthy. And I love what you read about spirit can't know anything other than itself. It only sees the absolute perfection of us because that is the eternal piece of us. That's what's really true about us. I do a talk on the prodigal son. And the prodigal son screws up. He spends 1/3 of his dad's money, wastes it. He comes back and he's got his talk. When you screw up and you've got the talk that you're gonna apologize. I really screwed up, Dad, and I'm so sorry. And the father, who represents spirit, isn't hearing him. He's like, get the robe. My son is back. Get the ring. Do you know what the ring represented? It had the family emblem on it, and it was the unlimited credit card of the family, and he just blew 1/3. See, this is how spirit sees us. It's us, our self-judgment, that keeps us from all of the abundance and forgiveness and substance and whatever life we're wanting to call in. It's not spirit, and it's easy, I think, to get confused sometimes.
I think that's when we get wrapped up and confused that we're human beings having a spiritual experience. I think that's where we're confused. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So not the other way around. I think when we get all wrapped up in forgetting who and whose we are, and we're keeping ourselves in that space, we have flipped the narrative now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just a human. I'm just a human being. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, no. You're actually having an experience. You're a spiritual being here, having this experience. So to keep the narrative, I think for me, I have to recheck that quite often because the whole world will keep feeding you the wrong way, right? And then when I get my spiritual work, or I recognize I'm in a space doesn't feel right, doesn't feel good to me. I'll check myself. Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm having a human experience. That's not the truth of who I am, and I need to work through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the ability, I love when you're talking about the prodigal son, and for the ability of coming back, how the prodigal son was like, okay, even my dad's servants eat better than this, when he was out eating the pig slop or whatever like that, and he comes back now. I love this story, and I also look at it from the big brother, or the other brother.
Yeah,
right?
The good son.
The good son. He stayed. He didn't spend dad's money. I've always been here. So have you ever been in that position, right? Where you're the person who's doing all the right things and life still isn't giving you what you want? Yeah, right?
Lots of head nods. Yeah.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
That's
And, so now I've done everything right and I'm still receiving nothing. What's up, God? How come? I've been here. I became a reverend. I do all my prayer work and my meditation and my spiritual practices. What do you mean I'm not abundant? How come? How come I'm having problems at work? How come all my friends don't love me unconditionally? What's happening? And not that I've ever had any of these thoughts, ever.
Oh my God.
That to me is probably the harder amends to make than the son who was out spending the money, being the son who stayed home and did everything right, saying to Spirit, how come I haven't been rewarded? Because I still have in my mind at times that thing that I somehow earn the grace. You know, I somehow earn the favor of the universe.
Well, and the good son was bemoaning that the bad son like got a party. Oh yeah. And Spirit's going, but son, all that I have, remember 2/3, is yours. And I am always with you. But he can't let a drop of the good in because of righteous judgments. And that's what happens. We get we get in our own way.
Yes.
With some things.
Has anybody ever gotten their own way?
Never.
No? We're preaching to the perfect
I think-
over here.
I think we have- I know.
Just a few times.
Just a few times. Just a few times today, I've gotten in my own way.
Seriously, I know. This is what we do, though. This is what we do, and this is why we talk about this so much. Is about remembering to begin within. You know, have your practices that keep you in check, because it's so easy to fall back into that other way of doing life, which doesn't lead you to a life that you love. And that's our mission, is to help you create a life that you love. So that's why we talk about beginning within, staying present, checking your emotions, you know, getting the feedback, like, where am I at? Why am I feeling this way? What's that? That's just something for my awareness. I'm angry, I'm frustrated, this person just ticked me off. Wait a minute, that's not this person, that's me. What's my awareness around that? How do I get myself back in check? You know, so that you can stay in the space that you know, that space that you want to be creating life from.
Oh, I love it. And, you know, Reverend Mitch talked about the confusion in last night's workshop. And I loved that. I loved that is, you know,
Confusion.
that's what hiding the fear is what you said.
Yes.
Here, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
Tell the
Yes.
confusion part, because I wrote that down too last night.
So one of the disguises of our inner critic, because its job is to keep you stuck, immobile, because then you're safe. You're not doing anything, right? That's its version of safe. So one of its strategies is to convince you that you're confused. And so oftentimes, you know, when I hear people say they're confused, I get really curious, because we all have a truth compass within ourselves. You ever get that small voice that came in and gave you some information, but you ignored it, right? It was the truth. We know the truth. A better question to ask is, if you say I'm confused, ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Because there's some fear that's trying to create confusion, so you won't take action. And if you don't take action, you can't be afraid. See how that's connected? So yeah, being mindful, staying awake at the door of your mind to see what's coming up, that initial reaction of your thoughts and feelings are going to tell you a lot about what's going on, not only with that inner critic, but any fears or any confusion that you think you have that you don't have.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, that talk last night was so great. There were so many great pointers, but that confusion part I hadn't considered before. And then having that second question to come in. If you recognize you're confused, you know, you're having that feeling, how many of you have had that feeling? Any you guys, you don't hear it? Yeah, it hit me like, oh, because the words were up on the screen. He listed the words. There's like 5 ways. The last one was to confuse. And I was like, you know, it didn't mean anything to me then. And then when he started talking about it, it was like a ton of breaks, like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And then to say, well, what are you afraid of? Wow, that's like, put that in your toolbox. I mean,
Right.
Stick that in there. Like, what's the feeling I'm having? Why am I feeling that? I'm feeling confused. Wait a minute, well, what am I afraid of? Here's what am I afraid of. Okay, then how do I, you know, it's like just the self-awareness and the self-work. It's never ending. It's this constant evolution, this constant evolving that you're doing all the time, but your ego stays stuck where it's at, and it keeps wanting to pull you back here while
Where
you're
it's
trying to go
safe.
right. And Trey, I see Cindy's hand behind you, so let me give you. Okay.
Thanks, Trey.
I'm sorry, I still don't have much of a voice.
it's okay.
In my experience, the forgiveness sometimes comes in layers. because you forgive somebody and then you run up against them again and you realize I didn't forgive them completely, you know. So my father, I grew up with a physically abusive father, and I did so much forgiveness work and practitioner and ministerial training. And then he gets Alzheimer's, and I am like, I need to forgive him again. You know, I need to forgive again. So in my life, and forgiveness comes in layers. I was, my dad passed away yesterday, and my heart is clear.
I love
Yeah.
that. That's a great feeling to know that your heart is clear when that transition
Right.
happens. I'm so glad that was how that happened for you. We love you, Cindy.
Yes, thank you.
Glad you're here today. I was hoping
Yeah.
you'd come today.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I knew you should. I was like, she needs to be here today.
How about anybody else want to share forgiveness, forgivingness, self, others? What are you shaking your head for, Amy?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay. God bless you.
You know, I love your story, Reverend Cindy, and thank you for sharing that. I'm so sorry for your loss, but it also sounds like you did your work.
I did so much work.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of work that we tend to want to put off. And we think we have time, but we don't know. And I always encourage, I do a lot of spiritual counseling with people. I always encourage them to ask themselves, what actions do you need to take to feel in integrity and clear with this person? Like if they were to leave the planet tomorrow, are you in integrity? Did you say what needed to be said? Did you heal what needed to be healed? Right? On your side of the street. It's not about the other person. So that you can have that sense of feeling clean and free within yourself, you know, as long as people are on the planet.
That is truly an important thing because once they do transition, we can't have those conversations like that with them anymore. So it's a long time to live with that if you don't get the chance to clear those things up. So yeah, I definitely agree. Maybe somebody in here or somebody listening will have something that comes up for them where they recognize they still have some work to do with around someone else, and that's the time to do it is now. The time to do any of this work is now. We don't want to put any of this stuff off. You know, if it's wreaking havoc in your system, if it's upsetting your system, it's also operating underneath everything you're trying to create. So while you're coming here on Sundays or you're listening or we're doing this work and we're trying to help to create a life that we love, there's still something operating underneath at that ego level that's undermining all that we're working so hard to do. So why not, address it when it comes up? What was the saying that, was it you that said that? I'm trying to think where I got this from, but somebody said, so remind me if it's you or something I read, somebody said that if it comes up, it's because you are okay to deal with it. Oh, I think it was another friend of mine said that.
I think that you guys talked about it last week.
If it comes up.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't from Chris.
No. No,
I'll remember.
From Susie.
Thank you. It was from Susie.
Yeah.
Susie Freeman, who is my guest. You guys remember that? Yes, it was last week. Thank you. She said that if the emotion comes up for you, if that thing comes up for you, it's because you are ready to deal with it. You have what it takes to deal with it. So do it. Just go through it and do it. Get your tribe. You know, we're all here for each other. We're all here. Reverend Jeannie and I are here for you. I'm sure Reverend Mitch is here for you. We're here for you. So if you recognize there's something like we're talking about, you're like, oh, I can feel this thing back on my throat or in my guts. I can feel it. Don't push it aside anymore. You know, like this moment is to help you be forgiving. Forgiving what? Not forgiving more of that negative feeling. We don't want any more of that. We don't want to attract that. We are forgiving love. So how do we get it to that place?
Well, I love what you just said, how. And that's typically one of the biggest roadblocks is how do I forgive, right? And I remember, back in my late 30s, I had a terrible addiction. And I was showing up as somebody I didn't recognize. I was angry. I wasn't making good choices. And I remember I had a moment of clarity. I was standing out by my pool and I started to think about my father, who was a deep alcoholic. He actually died of cirrhosis. And I only knew him as a shadowy, kind of scary person. He also suffered from sadistic personality disorder, which a lot of people don't know about. And I remember hanging out by the pool thinking about how I wasn't myself. And then I began to think about him, that maybe he wasn't his self, steeped in this addiction. Maybe he was suffering too, because I was in my own personal hell. And all of a sudden I had a moment of empathy for him. And I thought, well, there's a piece of him that lives in me. And if I don't forgive him, it's almost like I can't forgive me in some way. And at this point, I wasn't in religious science, so I did the classic help me prayer, right? Help me forgive my father, because I didn't know how. And what unfolded was nothing short of a miracle in my mind. A few short months later, I came out to Arizona to see my cousin. She had just decided to pull all the pictures out of the family. And she was telling me how my father was her favorite uncle. And I'm like, well, that wasn't my experience of him. And she said, you know, a lot of the family said that the war changed him. He was in World War II. He was a Marine Raider, which means he had to take people out without making a sound, right? He had to do some really terrible things. And they said when he came back from the war, he was changed. And they didn't have Wounded Warrior. They didn't have Near the Supports. And I started to get an adult version of my father, a different version, an empathetic, a more well-rounded understanding. It didn't change the poor behavior, but it changed me and my capacity. Now, he walks through my mind and I just love my father. I never thought that was possible, but it is. And you can just say, help me, I don't know how, and see what shows up.
I love that because
Yes.
I love the recognition that this other person, they're having their own battles, their own journey, their own stuff going on in here. You know, my grandmother was the meanest woman in our family. She was not a nice woman, and she was tough. Most children were afraid of her, and she, if she was mad at you, she could ignore you for the rest of your life and never talk to you again. I don't care who you were. Could be her own daughter, could be her husband, could be your sister, didn't matter. She just cut you right off, and then you got nothing. She was just brutal. And I remember that for some reason, the person in me, I'm like, I had to have her love. I had to have her. I had to be her favorite thing, a person. And I worked really hard at that. And so that's where a lot of my perfectionism comes out, because I was perfect. I was perfect. So she would acknowledge me, and then over time I wore her down. This woman of stone, I wore that woman down. And I saw things from her, and my mother had been abused by her, so my mother couldn't understand it.
Right.
My mother was a beautiful, wonderful woman. Anybody in here know my mom? My mom, yes, you did. That's right. My mom was like the person that, when my mom died, she filled the church with people coming, like people that were angry and upset that she was gone, because she was their person. So this loving, wonderful person I got to have as a mother, because my grandmother was so horrible that my mother said, I'm not going to be like you. I'm going to be your polar opposite. And that's why I got that mother. But that mother couldn't understand why I wanted this horrible woman. Why I wanted to go over there. I want to spend the night with her. I wanted to see her. But when I was the only one in the room, this woman was somebody else. She would like take me in her room, and she had a secret drawer of jewelry, and we would play dress up in her really cool jewelry. And then she would give me cool shoes, and she would put makeup on me when no one was in the room. And as I got older, I started hearing stories about her. She grew up during the Depression with a mother that had diabetes, and a father had passed away. So she couldn't care for her children. And when you were 13 years old or older, when you were kind of orphaned, even though she wasn't technically all the way orphaned, because her mother was still living, family would take you, but if you were old enough to go in an orphanage and work for your keep, you were put in there. So her younger siblings got to go to the family, and she went to an orphanage, and she worked the rest of her childhood. She couldn't be adopted because she belonged to somebody, but she worked like that. And so that was her understanding of love and family. It was a horrible experience. So she came out, and I remember when she was on her deathbed, my mother had the courage to ask her, did you ever love me? Did you ever love me at all? And I thought, wow, that takes a lot of guts. Because had my grandmother died, I didn't know my mother thought that she never loved her, but had my grandmother died and my mother had to live with that her whole life, how horrible to think that she never loved her. But she had the guts to say it just one time. And my grandmother said, what kind of question is that? Of course I loved you. Of course I loved you. Why are you saying that? She says, well, you never said it. I never heard you. You never said it. She goes, I said it to you every day. What are you talking about? I said it every day. She goes, when did you say it? She said, I said it in your breakfast, and I said it in your powdered bedding, and I said it in your iron sheets, and I said it in your clothes that I mended, and she went on and on. And my mother, of course, broke down like she never, as a child, you just don't understand, right? So I love your story about as an adult version. Like when we're children, we have so many emotions and so many things that happen. We just don't have the understanding to understand or comprehend. We haven't had our own life experience and seen the tough stuff to be able to understand someone else's toughness, right? And so my mother finally got the chance to see this little old woman who was on the end of her life, finally got the guts because she couldn't hurt her anymore. She couldn't get out of bed and spank her, and she couldn't, grab the nearest thing and swat her. She couldn't do any of that stuff anymore. She couldn't barely holler at you anymore or nothing. So she was this frail little thing. And she finally had the guts to ask her, and I was like, thank God for that, So it's like, I love that because that forgiveness work, maybe we're hanging on to things from a younger place that we can't even, now we're older now. I'm older now. I don't want this little kid running my life, especially in the area of forgiveness or in any areas. Let me relook at that. Where did those things happen? Let me relook at that as this person. I've had life now. I've made bad mistakes. I've made good decisions, all that. Let me look now. Now what do I see?
Right. That's one of the things that in looking at it from a grown-up point of view is to be able to have that compassion. We were talking about this last night. In able to have compassion for those that may have harmed us and to look at them, that in itself is a vulnerable place to be. To be able to have compassion for another human being and see them for who they are, for this frail person, for this person who had PTSD, it sounds like, to see the full roundedness of this human, even though they caused harm. I'm not saying that they didn't, but to have compassion for who they are as a rounded human being, that is a vulnerable place because that says, I can see you. And Reverend Mitch talked about that, being seen, being heard, being accepted and acknowledged and recognized and respected in that. And in doing that, with that vulnerability, that allows us to be connected.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to add that, what I'm talking about is doing the look back over our lives. And for me, where I've gotten to, and I would offer this to anybody to consider, that everything is either a lesson or a blessing. And when I put that frame of understanding for everything that's happened in my life, even that stuff when I was a little child that was abusive, what I learned early on in my life is not to abuse my power because everyone around me was. So now I can alchemize those negative experiences and do something really great with them. That's where our power is. And that's what truly, for me, has made all the difference in my life. Now I just look for lessons or blessings. and it's really helped the forgiveness process.
I love that too.
Right, and that's what it is. It's helping the forgiveness process, helping to release whatever negative attachment we have to those experiences or those people, release that. And now we don't have those things operating underneath us, undermining us. We're not, we're able to just move in love.
Right. Move in love. That's, yes, right? That even feels different when you say it, right? There's a gliding.
Yeah.
There's an acceptance. There's the freedom to that. And there's a freedom in forgiveness. There's a freedom in forgiveness.
When we move in love, I love that. I love that you said that. We start to heal the ouch. We start to heal the hurt, right? Because hurt people hurt people. I remember there was this one minister who didn't have much like of me. I don't know why. I saw him at a conference and he had nowhere to sit except next to me. And I said hello, and he did the hello, the short hello. And then he sat down with the body turn, and I'm like, how are you? Nothing back. Well, the funny thing was, a lot of his congregants wanted me to speak at his community. And I didn't tell them what was going on. I just said, look, if he says yes, I'll show him. So they worked on him and worked on him. And I'm guessing he said, sure, but I don't want to talk to him because it was the president of the board that set it all up. So I showed up that Sunday, and there he was. And I went right up to him and I hugged him and I hugged him. And you know that long, uncomfortable hug. And I'm like, thank you so much for having me. And I was just pouring on the love. Oh my gosh, this community was so amazing. And you know what happened? He went from this stiff, and his shoulders started to drop, and he started to smile, and he felt safe, and he's like, let me show you this, and this is what we're doing. And I've spoken twice now. There.
See, there you go.
Love, you just gotta love that stuff out of some people.
That's right. You don't know what was going on for him either, what his thinking was. You know, he could have gotten a preconceived understanding of you, and then you're like, he's like, that's not even who he is at all. He's not even like that at all. Oh my God, he's hugging me for like 30 seconds. Like,
The real good hugs, right? Good hugs,
he's
20
really a
seconds.
good guy. I like this guy. Let's keep him around. Yeah. Right. I know. And that's what we can do when we choose that, right? You could have chosen differently. Could have been like, well, whatever. No, I'm not speaking there. That guy's a jerk. I'm not going to go in there and bless that congregation if he's going to act like that. What would that do then? How does that feel? No, that doesn't feel good.
Constructive.
We don't want
Right.
that feeling.
Right. And that's the thing, right? The opposite of love feelings is constriction. And we're all tight and we're all like, ugh, you know, and I hate that feeling.
Well, when you're trying to create a life that you love,
Right.
that doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
It's
absolutely-
opposite of
You're
it.
kidding me.
I know. I
I'm
speak the
telling
truth,
you,
sister.
you speak the truth,
I know.
sister.
I bring it up.
It is.
But it is, yeah. So you're like, you're fighting yourself.
You
You know, you're holding yourself back.
So we were talking last night in reference to like community, and in community, the ability to have this type of connection, to have that ability to know that there are people on your side, right? In your tribe, in your corner, and having community, I think, makes the difference in moving forward in a lot of aspects of life, but especially something scary like forgiveness, right? Forgiveness work can be scary because I remember hearing this in, you know, a 12-step meeting thing, like, if I do this, if I let this go, I'll be like the hole in the donut. Like, who will I be without this?
Oh,
Right? Like, if I cannot define myself, and I have a lot of defining stories in my life. You know, I was the cancer survivor, or the, you know, recovering alcoholic, or, you know, the minister. You know, I have a lot of defining moment stories in my life that if I let go of them, who would I be? Right? And so if I let go of that pain, that hurt, that unforgiveness, who would I be in that scenario? And it can be a hard question to ask.
Well, and the other question to ask, has anybody ever met somebody who, I've had this happen before, where they talk about their divorce and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. When did that happen? 20 years ago? And but they're talking about it like it happened yesterday. And so sometimes when we get stuck on a pain point that lives in our present moment, the question to ask is, how is this serving me now? Because it's really something that sometimes we, in our humanness, take a negative event and then make it a positive, and we get a secondary benefit, like maybe attention or empathy, or people don't expect as much from us because, you know, we have this thing going on, right? And it's a really, I think, important question to ask, you know, because, and it's same is true with unforgiveness. Sometimes people are holding on to that so-and-so, you know, and everyone's like, oh, tell me about it. You know, there's an African tribe has a great tradition when somebody's been wronged in the village and they're, you know, flapping their gums. They get the whole tribe around the person and they say, tell us the story. And then when the story's done, they empathy, clapping. Tell us again, right? And so then they tell the story again, clapping, empathy. And they go, tell us again. And then they all turn their backs. Because the ritual is that the story is done. So now your story isn't going to land on anyone. Now you get to be done. You get to heal. And wouldn't that be fabulous if we did that in our workplace? That third time when somebody comes and turn your back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I could use that. Oh, yeah, I can imagine my residents coming in and me going,
We're done with that.
We're done with that
I'm
story.
sorry, that was the third time. That was the third time. I can't.
I can't do it
I
anymore.
can't do it. Any comments from the gallery? Anybody feeling anything around this, or are we?
Look, we told Mitch you guys were active and,
know, right?
you know.
Oh, I'm
I think
so
we're-
judging you.
Oh,
Right.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Love
It's
you.
okay if you don't. If we're covering it all, that's great. But if
Yeah.
there's anything we want to
But you know, we
tie to
always
that.
want to allow you the opportunity.
Perfect. Okay. All righty.
Oh, we got an Amy and we got a Cindy.
Cindy, all right, 2 of them.
I imagined actually a workplace sign showing, they have workplaces let you know instructions like if things happen.
Yeah.
Having a sign letting you know that process.
It's the same story,
Same-
third
same
time.
for-
turn your
yeah,
back.
like an official sign.
I love it.
I love that
it.
space.
I love that.
Thank you.
I'll have that made.
Easy.
There we go.
Yeah.
It'll be easy to make. Yes.
It'd be like a mission statement.
I might have it.
You get 2 and then.
You're done.
I was just gonna say, when I was working through my forgiveness work, and there's still always work to do with people. And so forgiveness is the other F word.
Oh,
Yes.
I love that.
And
Yes.
it just keeps it light.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's the
Yeah,
other F word.
absolutely.
Perfect.
The other
I love
F
that.
word.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eddie. Or you can give it to me.
So my major forgiveness came unexpectedly. My sister and I were on the outs for about 10 years due to some infractions on both of our parts. And my mother was kind of caught in the middle because my sister lives in Australia, and I live here. And my mother didn't know where to go for Christmas, and I was upset she went to Australia, and she was upset that she stayed here. And this went on and on and on. And then my mother died sort of expected, but unexpectedly in 2010. And when I had to call my sister to tell her, it was very difficult. But when my sister, we had to postpone the services because her husband was having surgery and she wanted to be there for him. But anyway, when my sister came, we both sat there and looked at each other and said, it's all water under the bridge. We're starting fresh. So since 2010, we've been the best of friends. And we speak every single week on Zoom now. And I look forward to it. She looks forward to it. And I just spent a month with her there. So I think we both realize that we are all we have left. We're a very small family. We have a brother too, but we're a very small family. If we don't get along, then there's nobody left for us.
Yeah.
So, and I think I did forgive my mother. My mother had nothing to forgive, and she was only doing what she could do. There's only one of her. You couldn't
Yeah.
split her up. So it really helped that we were able to forgive each other.
Oh, that's such a blessing that you guys move forward in that way instead of holding that. A lot of families have a hard time doing that, so that's great.
So last night we also talked about this book called Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Chamine. And he talks about the sage within us that has 5 powers. And one of them is navigation. So your story kind of exemplifies that. Where in navigation, we get perspective relative to our values about what's going on. Because sometimes it's easy to lose perspective and we kind of harbor these little hurts and cuts. And we magnify them in ways that really don't make sense when we look at the big picture of our lives. I always encourage people to think about their last breath. Like, on your last breath, are you going to be happy that you withheld love from fill in the blank, right? And that gives such great perspective, I think, sometimes to what's really important. And I just really love that tool of, navigating and perspective and our inner sage, that we have that available to us.
I do love that too.
Anyone else?
They look complete to me. They look good.
I feel complete.
I feel complete. You feel good?
I feel great. I'm on the couch.
I know.
The sofa. Oh God, I said couch. I practice, and I blew it. My
No
inner critics
C
were
words.
upset right now.
Couch Sunday just doesn't
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't, right?
Right?
I know, when she came up with that, that was like the best.
Exactly.
Well, I love this topic. I was really excited to do this with Mitch here because I knew we were going to get some different perspectives, but it's a different way to look at forgiving, right? It's a different way to keep yourself where you truly want to be, creating life from. So we hope that helped you guys and helps us.
And we are going to have Reverend Mitch pray us out.
Special treat today.
I know, my first prayer is a reverend. Wow, I know. Such pressure.
Oh, no pressure.
I'm confused.
There's no pressure. Well, what are you afraid of, Mitch?
I know, my gosh, I might forget how to pray. So let's just take a deep breath in. Let it out. Another deep cleansing breath in. And just releasing on the exhale. Allowing your mind and body to become fully present in this time, in this space. The eternal now, where all the power, all the love, all the grace, all the healing, all the wholeness is, and always was within us. And so I just give thanks for this powerful time in community of connecting, of revelation, of higher ground, of healing, of love and laughter. I'm so grateful for this special and divine community, Sofa Sundays, and the calling that practitioner Michelle and Reverend Jeannie said yes to, and that each and every person present here in this room and online said yes to, that we are all here present in the one, connecting, uplifting, and inspiring each other. And I know as we go out upon our week, each and every one of us is held, directed, protected, uplifted, and celebrated. And I give thanks for speaking this intention into the one that always says yes. Yes, my beloved. I release this word into the perfect activity of love and law. And together we say,
And
so it is.
Yay.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks so
So
much for
great,
being here.
yes.
Thanks for flying in just to be with us. this
Right?
weekend.
Yeah, we didn't say that. So while Reverend Mitch is not our first male guest on the sofa, he is our first out-of-town guest
Yeah,
on
it's
the
our
sofa.
first out
There
of
you go. So
I know.
we were
so
very,
happy.
very excited at our little place
And
has
the first thing he's done as a reverend.
Yes.
So we're like,
right?
we're the place to be, you guys.
We are.
And we're gonna have Rev Mitch back again.
Yes.
So we love having Rev Mitch here.
Yeah.
So we're so glad that you are all here too. Thank you to our spiritual church club partners. We thank you so much for the support of this community. This is how we do the things that we do. This is why we can do the cards and all the different things that we make available. So we really appreciate you all. And if you want to become a spiritual church club partner, it's different than the Facebook member, but we do have the abilities for both things. But you can go to our website at beginwithinministries.com, hit the donation button, and become a monthly donor. And that starts at $45 a month for an individual or $75 for a couple or a family. So we would, oh yes, you get your mug.
You get your mug.
And your Sofa Sundays charm. Yep, got your mug. And your Sofa Sundays sofa charm, which I did not put my necklace on today, but anyway, I have that and I love that. But we would love that because the more that we have in our community, the more that we can do for our community, for our partners. And then those of you on Facebook that are members, we appreciate you sharing what we've done today. So if you like this talk today, if you've got good stuff from it, please share it, comment, like it, heart it, whatever that is. But all of that makes Facebook say something cool is going on in Sofa Sundays, and then it starts to share it to other communities too. So that's how you can help us as a member, and that's how you can help us as a partner, and it just keeps us going. And then showing up.
Yes. We're so grateful for all. We have a full house today. Thank you. This is awesome. This is awesome.
They want to see Mitch. They want to do lunch, I think.
Right. I think they came
our
for the food.
community is hungry people, which
Yes.
I love those kind of people.
Yes. So that is what we're doing now. Is
Yes.
we're going to say goodbye to you online, and we're
Yes.
going to lunch.
We're going to lunch. Yay. See you all
Thanks
next
so
time.
much. We'll see you next week.
And our sound guy.
And our sound guy is.
And our
We're
sound
done.
guy
We're
is
leaving.
turning off.
I love it.
I know, it's a good day today. Good
Good
day. We love Sundays.